Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the press. Let me first start by thanking you for responding to our invitation within a very short space of time. I know how busy you can all be, and we don't take your time for granted. We just would like to apologize that the notice was not as adequate as it ought to be. But I'm here with the permanent secretary of our ministry, Dr. Abdulkadir Muazu, and our other officials are here. You will see an empty seat here. My Minister of State is away in Canada for a major mining conference, and that's why he is not here. But whatever we say here, we're saying as a ministry. And the reason why we have asked for you to come this afternoon relates to a matter that is of public interest. Ordinarily, we would not have bothered with this press briefing. And can I urge those who have their phones on to either put it on vibration or switch off completely? I was saying that we have asked you to come on the basis of a matter that is of overwhelming public concern. Ajaokuta Steel Company and all of the issues surrounding a controversy around it by the House of Representatives and our ministry. As I said, ordinarily we wouldn't have called for this press conference, but after what happened last week, in which my humble self and my Minister of State were, what is the word used? A vote of no confidence was passed on us by the House of Representatives. We had made a short response to it, and we felt that would have been adequate. But just 2 days ago, we realized that the majority leader went out of his way to address another press conference in Lagos on this matter, which was widely reported, I believe, yesterday by all of you. At this point, we felt we owe a duty to Nigerians to really explain the context of this frankly unwarranted and uncalled for attack by the leadership and the members of the House of Representatives on this ministry. The House of Representatives has every right to seek for an explanation on any matter relating to what they have appropriated as the one responsible for Appropriation Act, and on any matter of public interest. So there is nothing fundamentally wrong in the House of Representatives and its leadership requesting our presence at the sectoral debate that was called last week. As a matter of fact, the Speaker, the Right Honorable Speaker, had gotten in touch with us and said he wanted to pay a visit to Ajaokuta Steel Company. And the Minister of State accompanied him on that visit. He made that trip on the 12th of February, 2018. When he was there with his entourage, He made a whole range of remarks, perfectly legitimate for somebody in high office who is concerned about the comatose state of that plant. Subsequently, we received a correspondence. I believe we received that correspondence towards the end of February, intimating us of a sectoral debate on the Ajaokuta steel plant that the House of Representatives would like to have. And this was going to happen in the plenary. It wasn't a committee on solid minerals or the committee on steel development that invited us for this. We responded to this request by informing the leadership that I was involved as the lead minister for manufacturing and processing on the ERGP focus labs in a program that would not allow me to be present, and that the Minister of State was away in Canada. But we would really appreciate another time given to us to address the plenary on this Ajaokuta steel development, steel plant interest that they've shown. We didn't think there was anything untoward about our request for another time, partly because this will be the fourth time we were going to be speaking to the House of Representatives on Ajaokuta steel plant. The very first sectoral debate, which they claim was the one they were continuing, was held on May 17, 2016. And that invited many ministers to address them on issues pertaining to our ministry. I was the first minister to address that sectoral debate. And the central thrust of my address relates almost exclusively. There were other things they asked, but the issue that was of concern to them most was the Ajaokuta steel plant. At that time, we had not even signed the modified concession agreement, which was signed on August 1st, 2016. This was a few months, 1.5 months or so before that agreement. But I did brief them on the negotiations that was going on at the time with the Global Infrastructure Holding Company. 3 committees subsequently held specific hearings on Ajaokuta steel plant. The Committee on Ethics, Privileges, and Public Petitions. And my colleague, the Minister of State, presented himself to the committee. All the questions that they asked. All those who were interested in the public were also present. The Committee on Privatization, in the same House of Representatives, also held another hearing on Ajaokuta Steel Complex. I believe Honorable Kolawole also was the one that chaired this when they held it. Again, the Minister of State was present to explain the position of the federal government on the steel plants. There was also a third hearing, this time by the Senate Committee on privatization chaired by Senator Ben Bruce. And all of these hearings, we made presentations, written presentations, explaining the trajectory of what had transpired in Ajaokuta. We were very clear that this is an inherited challenge that government has to deal with, because government is a continuum. We cannot say because we were not the Obasanjo government that concessioned it, or the Yaradua government that revoked it, we will just leave it like that and not take a position. And we outlined in very specific terms the positions that we have taken, leading to the signing of the modified concession agreement with Global Infrastructure Holding Company on NIOMCO, that is the National Iron Ore Mining Company in Itakpe, also in Kogi State. Since that agreement was signed, a series of issues tied to the agreement had been taken up by the ministry. Whether it's the question of intercompany audit, advise us accordingly as to who really has the technical capacity, the financial wherewithal, and the track record to really bring Ajaokuta back to life. However, government took a principled position on one thing, that Nigeria will not spend $1 on so-called completion of Ajaokuta steel plant. And the reason for that is very simple. To date, from our records, we have spent close to $8 billion since 1979, when this process started. And we have not seen the result. People will tell you all manner of silly things. It is 98% to complete. It is only 1% left. It's this or that. It's absolute balderdash. Because when you then probe further, what do you mean by 2% completion? Is it the external infrastructure around it? Is it the blast furnace? Is it the medium section? Or the light rolling mills? You will not get any definitive response from the campaigners who want Nigeria to still sink money into this plant in order to complete it. But as I was saying, we requested in budget 2017 for the reconcessioning of Ajaokuta. And we'll give you copies of the current budget, which you can also independently access from the Ministry of Planning. The same House of Representatives, the same National Assembly approved for us for concessioning. In fact, that is the title, concessioning of Ajaokuta Steel Company Limited, 2 billion naira. So I found it surprising when I listened to what the Right Honorable Speaker said on the floor, and also when he went to Ajaokuta, that concessioning is not acceptable, not allowed. We don't pass the law. Appropriation Act is a law that has to be respected and honored. we didn't put any of these figures there. Yes, we requested for it, but they could have rejected. There are things we requested for that were rejected. But if this same National Assembly passed this law, and all that we have done was to commence the process of implementing what is in the law, I really want to find out what is our offense, please. This is the Appropriation Act of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It is not Fayemi's law. It is not Buhari's law. It is the law of appropriation that the National Assembly passed. And this is why I find it really unfortunate that we have been subjected to vitriolic attacks that cannot be justified by any stretch of imagination. We have had a very cordial and respectful relationship with the National Assembly. There's no time we have been invited. As I've indicated to you, there have been four sittings on Ajaokuta alone. And we've been present at every single one. Different committee level and then one sectoral debate. This was the only sectoral debate that they called that we were not present at. And with an explanation, because we wrote, we informed the leadership of the House that we will not be available. Please give us another date for us to come and explain whatever. We don't know what you want to know, but whatever it is that you want to know, we'll be happy to share the information that we have with you. There's been all manner of suggestions. Oh, it's $500 million that is needed to complete it. Oh, you can use the money from the recovery account of the looted funds. You can approach sovereign wealth fund. Gentlemen, I don't want to comment on any of this, but the position of this government is very clear. And it has nothing to do with me as minister. The position is that we would only give Ajaokuta Steel Complex to people who participate in an open bid that is transparent, that is independently verifiable, in which we can find precisely what they have. And this would only happen after the completion of the technical audit that is ongoing currently at the plant. There had been technical audits before. But we also know that there are fluctuations in prices, there are depreciations that take place, there are things that have happened in the course of the last decade, which is why we have commissioned another technical audit of the place. And the interesting thing is that this one, we deliberately involve professional institutions to be part of this process. I just thought, for me, as the representative of the president in this ministry, I owe a duty to Nigerians to explain our position to them. I have also had it said by some members that there has been a whole load of allegations of impropriety on the part of this ministry. It would be remiss of me not to address that. And that was one of the things we addressed in our response to the House of Representatives, that we take serious exception to allegations that are not backed up by evidence. One of such allegations is that Russia has offered to come and complete Ajaokuta steel plant, and it is Minister Fayemi who does not want Russia to come. Does this even make any sense? The Russian government has not offered to come and complete Ajaokuta steel complex, to the best of my knowledge. And I should know I'm in charge here. As I indicated to you, there are private institutions in Ukraine, in Russia, in Belarus, and also in Nigeria that have expressed an interest. And we've consistently informed everybody that, look, wait for the bid process to start. We've noted your interest. We would ensure that you are given a fair consideration like others in this process. There was also some allegation, I'm glad PS is just reminding me now, that officials of the ministry, their hands are tied by the proposed concessionaires. Concessionaires that we don't know, that in a process that has not even commenced, and we have no clue as to who is going to get the ultimate concession on the steel plant. How can our hands be tied by this? We're not even sure we'll be here as ministers by the time this process is completed. So it is such unfounded allegations that we think is unbecoming of the entire House of Representatives. And I've chosen to be quiet about it, but when the leader of the House went out again after what they did on the floor, of course, it's their privilege to do what anything they do on the floor is a privilege. But to go out of that hallowed chamber and descend on attacking us again, I think it is totally unbecoming of the leadership of the House. And I have my name. There's nothing that I have come to government with apart from my name. I'm not going to subject myself to my name being rubbished on grounds that are unfounded, that are unwarranted, and that cannot be defended on any basis. And to finally say that since the House of Representatives has now said that it has no confidence in me and my colleague as a minister, I do not believe the House of Representatives should expect me to now even honor any invitation by them. Although in our original letter we had offered that please give us another date, we would come. But now, what is the basis of listening to somebody you don't have confidence in? I don't think there's any basis. But if Nigeria is our interest, and how to ensure that all of these processes that have been incorrectly handled are now handled in the best interest of our citizens. We don't need these brickbats between the executive and the legislative branches of government. It is not helpful to us. And it's not fair to the Nigerian citizens. That is why I feel it is absolutely important for me to address this press briefing. It is an unusual one. It is not one that I would ordinarily do, but I think enough of this attack The fact that we're public officers does not mean we don't have blood flowing in our veins, or that we don't have family members who read these things and are worried about all these vitriolic attacks. Thank you very much. I'll take questions if you have. I will make available to you all of the things I've said, both the budget, the Appropriation Act 2017, and every other information that you may require from us.
Thank you very much, sir. This is the interactive session now. So please, if you want to have questions, please indicate by raising up your hand and introduce yourself, your name, and the organization you are representing.
Yes, sir.
Honorable Minister, my name is Yusuf Ali. I'm a managing editor with the Nation Newspaper. I just want to find out whether you have explored peaceful options since a vote of no confidence was passed on you and your deputy in the last 1 week. But you seem to have drawn the battle line. As the communication gap between you and the House broken down in the truth. Can you please carry on?
Well, thank you very much. I hope not. I hope we'll find a middle ground. Both the leadership of the House is one that I respect a lot, and I also happen to be quite friendly with a number of them in the leadership. To the best of my knowledge, we haven't even been formally communicated to beyond what was on television and on the media, what this vote of no confidence is. I have received no formal communication from the House of Representatives, and I look forward to receiving one. So on the basis of what I receive, I would respond.
Thank you very much. Please, can we take the lady in Laila?
Good afternoon. My name is Ajaokuta, and I report for Blueprint newspaper.
Okay.
Yeah, you mentioned that it is upward when people talk about the 98% completion of the Ajaokuta still. In your view, as the minister of this ministry, could you tell us what percentage, what level of completion is this steel company, and then how much do you feel or that you know will be needed to actually put it in place?
Thank you, Ayoni. I will be committing precisely the same error if I sit here and I tell you that Ajaokuta is not 98, it is 70% completed. If I say this is how much it's going to cost to complete it, that, in my view, is an unintelligent response. I said something to you in the course of my presentation that a technical audit is ongoing. I would urge you to wait for that technical audit to produce a factual, evidence-based, independently verifiable costings, rather than you take my word. I'm not an engineer, I'm not a mining engineer, I'm not a metallurgical engineer. So if I give you a figure, it would just be like the same figures that are being bandied around that I'm criticizing. Yes.
No, sorry. Yes, my name is Kayode. I work for this day.
Yeah.
Honorable Minister, I want to find out, apart from what we are being told about the simile agreement between the office and that of the House, has there been any request from the leadership of the National Assembly or from some interest over this concessioning process?
I'm in enough trouble already.
Okay, sir.
Honourable Minister, my name is Sonny Daniel. I'm the Northern Region Editor of
Vanguard.
I don't know why all the steel-related agencies or companies in Nigeria are enmeshed in controversies. In my state of Akwa Ibom, there is another controversial steel project, ASCOM. And I understand there was a Supreme Court judgment giving the ownership to a company. But recently, we also had disclosures that the ministry insists that this company must go to the Russians. Why should we disobey the apex court of the land in this situation? And all of these will still go to give Fayemi, my good friend, a bad name.
Oh, that's only interesting. I must be a Jekyll and Hyde character. In Ajaokuta, I'm being accused of hating the Russians. In Ikotabasi, I'm being accused of loving the Russians. So, which is which, really?
Maybe you're a Russian.
I mean, but seriously, again, it is unfortunate the way this whole process has been managed. We have found ourselves with a fait accompli as the subsisting government in Nigeria today. And our interest is just one. We want all these steel projects to work. We have no other interest. On the matter that you have raised, I have been deeply involved, even though it is privatization. That one is not concessioning, and that's the difference. Yes. Concessioning belongs to the ministry. Privatization belongs to BPE. All we do is give them the technical support in the ministry, but it's primarily the responsibility of BPE. So it's BPE that is best placed to answer your question. But I will answer because I know virtually everything that transpired on that particular case. Yes, there was a Supreme Court decision, but the Supreme Court decision was not an open-ended decision. The decision provided that the original bid winner should be given the opportunity to meet the conditions of the bid and gave a time frame for that to happen. That did not happen. But we did not stop there. In these very premises that you are sitting in, I engaged both parties, BFIG, Rosal Group, their councils, BPE, our ministry, in series of meetings. And BPE finally, following a decision of the National Council on Privatization, to re-offer the company, Alscon, to BFIG. And it was re-offered to BFIG after this Council of Privatization decision. And BFIG did not meet the conditions. It was when it did not meet the conditions that we now went back to Mr. President and got an express order from the President to give the second bidder the chance. That's the context. There's no complicated situation about that. You may hear all sorts of stories about it, but the reality is the reality, and that's what we did. And that's something you can also further check with the Bureau of Public Enterprises, because they're primarily responsible for this. But as per why our steel companies have been caught in this, well, bad planning, I would say, from the start, terrible execution on the part of previous government, and that's what we really want to avoid by making sure that we cede all these things to those who are equipped to manage it. I have never stopped saying, with the greatest respect to our metallurgical engineers and our managers in the country, that we are not in a position to successfully manage these plants. At this point in time, we're not. If we want to make a success of them, we would have to depend on expertise from countries where they have succeeded. However, I don't want you to misconstrue what is happening to our public steel companies as a byword for failure in the steel sector. As a matter of fact, most Nigerians do not know this. We are exporting steel in this country today. From Nigeria to Morocco, from Nigeria to the West Coast, from Nigeria to Japan. You have steel companies in Nigeria doing all this, and you can go and independently find out what African steel is doing, what some metal in Sogota is doing, and you'll find out what is happening in the sector. So there's a lot of creativity and innovation that private sector operators are really demonstrating in this sector. And that is precisely why there's justification to support public-private partnership for our steel companies and not expect government to keep spending money in a bottomless hole. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Two more questions to go. We have, okay, that's three.
Okay, thank you. My name is David Malinga with Bloomberg. Just two short questions. The first, when do you expect the technical audit to end so that you can go ahead with the concession? And then secondly, given where we stand, do you think the project will even take off? And given what we have seen as a political stalemate between the Nigerian lawmakers and the executive and their institutions that are fallen victim, including the central bank, do you probably think you're also falling victim of the same, where you're untwisted, but then the actual problem or the actual fault is not with that particular project that is publicized, but it's just a political stalemate, like it has happened with a freeze of approvals from the president?
Well, I don't want to speculate on the reasons for this. Yes, there are those who have said this is a fallout from executive, legislative differences. I really would not want to think so. I don't think we are a victim of the institutional conflict. I also don't think it's personal. As I just said, many of the people in the leadership of the National Assembly, particularly the House of Representatives, are people that I am familiar with, that I would describe as friends, and that are leaders in my own political party. So, I mean, we will not do anything to harm our own party. We are of the same political party. The leader of the House that I just mentioned is from my political party. Mr. Speaker himself is from my political party. Everybody in the leadership of the House to the best of my knowledge, I don't believe anything has changed in the last 24 hours. They are all members of my party. However, there may be things that are not clear to me. There may be more than meets the ordinary eye on this issue, but I can't speculate on that. On your second question, Director Steele, when is the technical audit likely to be ready? Do we know?
It's in the next 6 weeks.
In the next 6 weeks, okay. The technical audit is ready in the next 6 weeks. And, I mean, are there confidentiality clauses that will not allow us to share it?
No, there are confidentiality clauses so that information.
Okay, because they will use it in the transaction advisory. Okay, all right. But there must be things we can share with the...
Maybe the timelines and milestones. Yes.
Timelines and milestones. Okay, well, when we get to that stage, we'll deal with it. But so,
Can we take the last question?
yes.
My name is Isa Aboha from the Telegraph newspaper.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, you said that Ajaokuta is a bit of Russia, is a bit of no indicate interest. That Russia did not indicate interest to continue. And then this lady, Ajaokuta, said there was a meeting between you and the Russia. What do you say?
Honestly, I think we need to raise the level of this discourse beyond tittle-tattle. You will know that I was very careful. This is a matter between the ministry and the House of Representatives. I can address the substance of your question without reference to a particular individual because I really would not dignify anyone that is not in this frame of officialdom, if you get what I mean by that. Russia, as a government, has not approached this ministry, nor has Russia approached the Nigerian government that they want to come and complete Ajaokuta steel plant. I have had cause to discuss the Ajaokuta steel plant with the Russian ambassador ministry. And the ambassador extended all courtesies to me, but said for them, they can offer us technical assistance to be paid for by the Nigerian government, but they're not interested in taking ownership of Ajaokuta Steel Complex via a concession. In other words, they're interested in a contract. If we are offering a contract for either technical support, technical management, or even technical audit, but not as a country bringing their own capital and funding to come and put in Ajaokuta. So as to the ownership also, I think we have to be very careful. And this is important because you are our conveyor belts in the media. The institution responsible for Ajaokuta, which is known as TPE, Tianjin Promo Export, is the name of that company. Well, not company, that consortium from the Soviet Union. You need to be careful about that. This was from the Soviet Union. Out of that Soviet Union of yore, 17 republics emerged in 1989, 1990. One such country came to this ministry and was very clear to us that, look, 60% of what you have in Ajaokuta today, that country claimed to us, came from their part of the Soviet Union at the time. And that country is an independent country today called Ukraine. And that they have more in terms of expertise and knowledge to contribute to Ajaokuta than the current Russian Republic or Belarus. These are three countries where I said some companies have shown an interest and they've approached us as private entities from those countries. Of course, it is the job of an ambassador to promote private entities too, as long as these private entities are from their country. So when somebody sits and tells you that, oh, Russia has offered this, Belarus has not offered this, Ukraine has done that, you really need to dig, because there is always more than what people appear to be saying. So if there's anyone telling you that we in this ministry have received an offer from Russia, no, we haven't. But have I met the Russian ambassador? Yes, I have. Just as I have met the Ukrainian ambassador on this issue. That's the truth.